Bodies is a dramatic crime-filled sci-fi thriller on Netflix. Today we're going to talk about it. Is it worth a binge? Let's do this. What's up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to the channel. Later today, my Killers of the Flower Moon reaction, but right now there is a limited series on Netflix that I think everyone needs to be talking about, and it's called Bodies. So based on the mind-bending graphic novel, Bodies is a police procedural with a twist when the same body is found in London's East End in 1890, 1941, 2023, and 2053. One detective from each period must investigate. And what this series does is it draws connection from time period to time period, each investigator and how things are starting to link up as we go throughout this series. And there's one particular central plot point, that's what I'll say without spoiling anything, that is connecting all of these plot threads, that is making things a bit easier for us to start to digest, start to figure out. But the mystery is as mysterious, especially in the first episode, as any mystery I've seen on Netflix in quite some time. I'm like, Dad, what's going on? Because in the first episode, you get three perspectives, three time periods. And I love the way they transition from time period to time period. You go from 2023 to 1941, the screen begins to split, and we start to shift into that new perspective. And we get that split screen kind of all throughout this series where we're looking at our investigators, and they're all three usually puzzled, like, what's actually going on here?
What the fuck is this?
And apologies for the voice. I'm still sick, so I'm trying. And this is a conspiracy that they're trying to solve that has taken place over the span of 150 years. So there is a lot at play. And in that first episode, we're staying there for right now, these three investigators, we don't get a ton of time with them at the beginning. It's more so, here's a body, what are you going to do about it? Here's a body, what are you going to do about it? And with each time that the body shows up, the lights go out, the technology goes in and out, and then we get to see a fourth perspective at the end of the episode, and we're like, wait a second, I thought there were three. I should have read the summary. We show 2053, and there's Shira Haas on screen. I'm like, this is great. The acting from our, I'd say our main quad squad. What's four? It's great. It was already great before we got to the fourth, and then we add Shira Haas to the equation. So there are four time periods to explore. Does this sound familiar? Is there any other show on Netflix that has done multiple time periods, and whether it be time travel or not, what's going on? There's conspiracy at play. It sounds a little bit like Dark. Now, it's very different, but I think the complexity of this show, it does start to match up with Dark. Does it do as good of a job as that series? They're doing two completely different things, but I will say it doesn't quite nail it. It doesn't quite bring it home as well because that complexity starts to become a little convoluted as we go. And I do think the runtime, even though it's only 8 episodes, each episode being around an hour, is a little bit too long, a little too lengthy in the middle. We're adding one too many characters, one too many subplots, and these conspiracies are fine. And the individuals that keep coming into the equation, specifically in 2023, we get a lot of really good interrogation sequences taking place behind glass, in front of glass. So it was really cool to see all of these new characters being added in. But when you have 4 time periods, and really 5 central characters that were focused on, one being introduced a couple of episodes in, and you're like, wait a second, is that person? What the hell? Stephen Graham plays a very integral role in this series, and I really liked his presence. At first, you don't think anything of it, but as we get into episodes 3 and 4, you're like, wait, that is way more of an integral role than I ever imagined. And as everything starts to come to light, and you see the tragedies that are actually coming from everything happening, right? It's not just one death over and over, the same body, right? It's many deaths. A bit earlier on in the season, we learn about a bomb and how that could cause many hundreds of thousands of more deaths, and we see some really tragic things happen on screen. I feel like I have to mention this because I didn't talk about the rating at the beginning, one involving suicide. So if you don't have the stomach for things like this, I mean, my goodness, in the first few episodes, they're looking at the body, dissecting the body, kind of carving up the body, and they're just casually doing it on screen, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, that's effective, but whoa. I love the fact that they used lighting, cinematography, and just the overall aesthetic to separate these 4 time periods. Everyone looks slightly different. I would say 2023 looks the most normal, but as we go back into time and as we go further back into time, we start to get that grainy, more authentic late 1800s look. And then when we go forward into 2053, it does look futuristic, sci-fi-ish, and it has this more smooth look to it. It's not dark and Blade Runner-esque. It doesn't have that vibe, but I didn't need that vibe. It does a good job of separating all of the time periods using cinematography and camera techniques. And overall, I think this show is really cinematic. There were times where the CGI isn't flawless, but I guess it didn't have to be. And to talk about our 4 characters, I mentioned Shira Haas. She's incredible as always. Amaka Okafor in our time period, there is this sympathetic feel to her character, and there's a trustworthiness in the way that she operates. So I really appreciated that. I enjoyed that performance. Jacob Fortune-Lloyd as Carl Whiteman. I'll be honest, there's a part of his character that's a bit untrustworthy. You don't know if you can fully commit to having that connection with him or not, but I think that's as intended, so I appreciated that. And then finally, Kyle Soller is Alfred. This was probably my favorite of the bunch. Not necessarily the best performance, but I just really enjoyed the way that he operated and presented himself, and this underlying feel that this show has. Even though every time period is different, it keeps that tone consistent, which I appreciate. But also, it's just the idea that this body is appearing in 4 different time periods, and everything that comes along with that is unexpected. But again, I keep coming back to the point that there may just be too much going on. I was never fully confused, but the first 4 episodes are integral. You have to be fully paying attention, because if you're not, one plot point could go over your head, and then we go to another time period. We don't come back until the next episode, and then you're thinking, wow, what was that again? So I could see how this could be a little confusing for a lot of people, and maybe just a bit too much from a story standpoint. I appreciate the fact that they went for it, didn't fully come together, but as an experience, I think this show works. It stands out as a very different type of series on Netflix. I do think there are times where they try to go for a message that just doesn't feel warranted. It's like we're so focused on this mystery and everything involved with our characters, and then we have to add in a message that, in a way, I see what they were trying to do, but it just didn't feel like the time and place for it. I'd rather focus on the story that we're getting on screen. So it's trying to do too much at times. But again, really entertaining.
Hey, that's pretty good.
And if you want to drop a thumbs up, that would be cool. Bodies is a riveting yet occasionally bloated series that presents some fascinating ideas. This time-bending mystery is engaging, and the leads are excellent. It may not be one you binge in one day just because of the length of the episodes, but a weekend binge, this weekend specifically, I think would be great. Like I mentioned earlier, Marty Scorsese. We're doing this later today. Stay tuned to this channel for a reaction. Hit the notification bell. Can't wait to do it. And then tomorrow, a full review, if I can breathe by then. We'll see.